Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Imagine you're tasting a new soup. You take one spoonful, then another. At what point do you know exactly what flavor it is? Is it after 3 spoonfuls? 5? Eventually, you get to a point where one more taste isn't going to tell you anything new. You've got it, it's tomato soup. Well, believe it or not, researchers face a very similar challenge, but with data.
For qualitative researchers, the ones doing deep interviews and observations, this is a massive question. I mean, how many people do you really need to talk to before you understand the full picture? How do you know when to stop, feeling confident you haven't missed some crucial piece of the puzzle? And unlike tasting soup, the stakes here are a whole lot higher.
The guiding principle that researchers use to figure this out is a concept called saturation. It's that moment when the data starts to repeat itself, when new interviews just aren't revealing any new insights. It's the researcher's version of knowing, for sure, that it's tomato soup.
And this is a huge deal. As researcher J.M. Morris puts it, saturation has become the gold standard. It's the main way researchers signal that their work is solid and trustworthy. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. For a concept that's so important, the way people use it is, well, it's surprisingly messy.
The scale of this problem is just stunning. A review back in 2007 by Rowlands and his team found that out of hundreds of papers that claimed they reached saturation, a whopping 91% never actually explained how. They just kind of said the word and moved on. So everyone agrees it's the goal, but almost nobody is showing their work.
So what is saturation really? To get why there's so much confusion, we've got to go back to where it all started and see how this seemingly simple idea got way more complicated over time.
So the term was actually born way back in 1967 with 2 sociologists, Glaser and Strauss. For them, theoretical saturation wasn't just about collecting data. It was about building a theory from the ground up. The idea was to keep sampling until your big ideas were totally fleshed out, until new interviews didn't add any new angles or details to the theory you were developing.
So in its simplest form, saturation is just the point of diminishing returns. You do an interview and you hear the same stories, the same themes, the same ideas you've heard in the last 5. At that point, you're not really learning anymore, you're just confirming what you already know.
But here's where it gets interesting. As more researchers started using this concept for all different kinds of studies, they realized it's not a one-size-fits-all idea. I mean, is stopping because you hear the same words the same as stopping because you've understood the whole theory? The answer is a big fat no. This table from a 2018 paper shows just how much the concept has splintered. Researchers have pinpointed at least 4 distinct models. You've got the classic, theoretical approach on one end, and on the other, you have something simpler like data saturation, which is really just about noticing when data starts to repeat. Each one has a slightly different goal.
And a 2017 study adds another really cool layer of nuance. They make this key distinction between code saturation, that's when you stop hearing brand new issues, and that happens pretty quickly, but then there's meaning saturation. That takes a lot longer. That's when you fully understand all the nuances of the issues you've already found. It's the difference between knowing tomato as an ingredient and really understanding its role in the soup's entire flavor profile.
So all this complexity created a very real problem. Researchers were left with this kind of nebulous concept, but no clear stop sign. And that kicked off a whole new wave of research, trying to find a much more concrete, practical answer.
This is the question on everybody's mind, right? Forget all the theory for a minute. Just give me a number. Is it 10 interviews? 20? 50? For years, the answer was always a frustrating "it depends." But lately, we've gotten some surprisingly clear guidance.
And here it is. A big systematic review by Henning, Kaiser, and Marconi looked at a ton of studies that actually tested for saturation. And their conclusion? For a lot of focused studies with fairly similar participants, you consistently hit that saturation point somewhere between 9 and 17 interviews.
And this holds up for other methods too. The same research found that for focus groups, the number was even smaller, usually between 4 and 8 groups. So that old idea that you need dozens and dozens of participants for your work to be rigorous, well, the evidence just doesn't really support it.
Now, these numbers are incredibly useful as a rule of thumb, but some researchers weren't quite satisfied. They wanted to turn that subjective feeling of "I think I'm hearing the same things" into a hard, objective calculation. They wanted to literally measure the point of diminishing returns.
And they actually did it. This approach is pretty fascinating. Step 1. You count the number of unique new concepts each interview gives you. The first one gives you a ton, the second, a few less. By the 10th, maybe only get 1 or 2. Step 2, you plot this on a graph. The curve starts out super high and then dramatically flattens out. And then, this is the cool part. You can actually use statistical tests to confirm that the curve fits a specific pattern that mathematically tells you, yep, you've hit saturation.
So we have rules of thumb, and we have mathematical formulas. But the most recent thinking on saturation argues that the real answer isn't a number at all. It's about your process. It's about being able to justify why you stopped whenever it was you decided to stop.
And this really gets to the heart of the modern view. Rigor isn't about hitting some magic number like 12 interviews. It comes from having a transparent, systematic process for your research and being able to explain and defend every single step you took along the way.
This checklist is a perfect example of what that systematic process looks like. It forces a researcher to ask these critical questions that go way beyond just sample size. Things like, have I included diverse or even opposing points of view? Am I using more than just interviews? And maybe most importantly, am I analyzing data as I collect it? This is what real rigor looks like. This really brings us to our final takeaway. In the end, what matters most isn't the exact destination, whether you stopped at interview 12 or 15. It's the quality of the map you used to navigate the journey, making sure you explored the whole terrain thoroughly and thoughtfully. Which leaves us with this final thought. The whole conversation around saturation has shifted. The most important question for a researcher today isn't just about recognizing the stop sign. It's about being able to pull over and explain, with confidence and clear evidence, exactly why that was the right place to end a journey.